My guest today is a force. I continually get impressed by the work that he's doing just for the world and especially in the health field. He's an author, he's a physician, he's a father, he's so many things. He has so many titles, and I love calling him my friend. He has a new book called Eat Your Age, and I had to bring him back to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ian Smith. How are you today?
Kelly, I'm great. I'm always happy to talk to you, and you put a smile on my face always.
Yes. So, Dr. Ian, I did something different for this book. I got the audible of this book. And let me tell
hmm
you, I feel like I need a certificate after going through this book because it's amazing, it's comprehensive, and it really breaks it down. And I'm curious, my first question is you've done so much with Shred Nation and all the books before. Putting this book together, why now and why did you break it down for Each Your Age?
Well, I wanted to write this book years ago, and my editor unfortunately didn't believe that it should be a full book. She thought it was a magazine article. I obviously disagreed with her, but at the end of the day, the editor calls the shots about which books are published. And then I switched houses, publishing houses, and I presented it to my new editor, and she loved it. So that just tells you how publishing is very subjective, right? And I've always wanted to do this book because I felt like people don't understand. We talk about aging and trying to make changes, and people don't understand that when you're aging, you have to have a perspective that life is going to grow, not diminish. And so, starting in our 30s, our body changes physically and physiologically. And that means that for each decade, we need to change the way we fuel our body with food and the way we move. We have to make adaptations. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't adapt to their decade. Once again, I'm not saying resign yourself to a life of deterioration and being incapacitated and withdrawal. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is be respectful of the season of life and then do the best things you can for that decade. So for each decade, I break down what are your top 10 nutrients? What are your top exercises, medical tests you need to get, medical conditions that could be lurking around the corner? And then I do at the end of each decade a 30-day customized meal plan so you can incorporate all those power nutrients. Because what you're eating in your 30s may not be what you need to be eating in your 50s and 60s. How you exercise in your 30s may not be the safest and most effective way to exercise in your 50s, 60s plus. And so that is what Eat Your Age does. It breaks down decade by decade how you need to eat, how you need to move in order to maximize life.
I love it. And one of the things as I was going through the book, Eat Your Age, is I was hopeful. It still gives you hope, even if you feel like you did some things wrong in your 30s and 40s, in your 50s. There's still hope that you can reverse some things in your life. And you start with your 30s. Um, what made you start at your 30s? Because that's the time when you got to get it right, or what made you start at 30s?
Yeah, well, because 30s are the decade of building a foundation for the future. And it's also a decade where you need to build resiliency. Okay. And so 30s is when it really starts. Let me give you an example. Your bone density or your bone stock, you need to build that up starting in your 30s to make sure that as you get older and your bones become more demineralized, that you don't suffer from osteoporosis and eventually fractures if you fall. And so that 30s is, I think, the time when you start actually making changes in your life to be able to live better going forward. Now, there are two statements I like to make with this book. The first statement is this: if you are fortunate enough to grow old, it's inevitable to be old, but feeling old is not inevitable. The second thing I like to say is, as you mentioned to earlier, is it's never too late to start. And there's a lot of optimism and hope in this book. First of all, I'm an optimistic person in general, but in this book, I wanted to be hopeful to let people know that regardless of what they did in their 30s and 40s, that they still can make changes to maximize their life, to feel younger, live longer, and be happier. And I think that that is kind of the motto of this book and the message I'm trying to convey.
What I love about this book, because you've always talked about being healthy, weight loss, but you added that it's a all mind, body, and soul thing. What I know that's how you live, but adding this component to this book, why was it important for you as well?
Because there was a lot of research on what's called the blue zones in the world. And blue zones are areas in the world where people live very, very long and very good quality of life. And so when you look at all the data and all the research, it says several things. It says that people are eating better fats, types of fats, unsaturated fats versus saturated fats, that people are physically active, that people are engaged with their community or some type of support system, family, church, bingo, dance, whatever. That the people who have the most engagement tend to be happier and tend to be healthier. And so, what I'm trying to encourage people to do is to realize that growing older is an opportunity. It is not a loss of opportunity. And we have to change our mindset
Mm.
about how we look at aging. You know, a friend of mine just retired from the Chicago Police Department. He's a detective, 29 years on the job, and he's retired. He's younger because he started young, but now he has so much in front of him, right? There's so much he can still do. Whereas the old perspective on retirement was, well, you're going to collect your social security or your pension. You know, you're probably not going to be able to be physically, well for a long period of time. That's not the truth. We have to try to change how we move our bodies. For example, here's a big example, by the way. Older people don't lift enough weights. Okay. They don't do strength training. They do cardio, walking in the park, walking on a treadmill, riding a bike. Great. That's good for your heart. And it's also good for your pulmonary system, your lungs. But you need muscles. Okay. And we resign ourselves to having weakness as we age. I think just the opposite. Listen, I'm 55 and I feel like I'm 25. I'll be honest with you. I'm lifting more weight now than I could when I was 25. So it's not like you can't have muscle mass, but we kind of give up and say we don't need to work on that. And let me give you three quick reasons why we need muscle mass. One, more muscles means higher metabolism, which means you can keep your weight in check. Number two, it helps with your stability, walking, jumping. So people who are walking off of a curb up onto a curb and clipping their foot and then falling, a lot of that has to do with an imbalance in their muscle strength, muscle weakness. And the last thing is your joints. Stronger muscles around your joints are important for helping to absorb energy and to maintain better joint health. So, if you need muscles in your 60s plus, 50s and 60s plus, what do you need? You need protein. You need to add more protein to your diet, and not enough people as they age are eating enough protein. So the book says these are conditions that happen in your decade. And here are the nutrients, and not just the nutrients, here are a list of foods to get those nutrients to add to your diet so you can help prevent or treat these conditions.
It's an amazing book. And it's funny. Before I really got into the book, I just made this commitment to myself. Like, I got to get back doing my push ups. When I tell you the 10 that I did the first day I did it, were very hard. And I'm in my first weeks of it, and it was very hard. So your book is so aligned to people like me who want to live longer and understand. Like, it resonated with me so much as far as about building your muscles. And I'm just so curious. This book, you really it was well researched. Um, and I thought, this is stuff that we hear all the time. Simple, because you created these 15 steps for living longer, which are so simple. And I go, why is it so simple and it's so hard to execute? And you've really, I want to give you kudos on it. I want to talk about as well. They always say a lot of stuff is made in the kitchen as far
Yeah.
as just your eating and stuff like that. And you talk about reading labels, you break down just how much protein you need to eat. And you really like water and staying hydrated. Staying hydrated was one of your 15 steps. Why do we make this so hard?
Well, it's made hard because there are a lot of people who have agendas to make this more complicated for people, and to make it confusing. My whole career has been about taking what can be some very abstract, esoteric medical information, distilling it so that it's not hard for people. But I think that people have outside interest to make it hard, and I think people make it hard for themselves. It really, and I don't mean to demean the amount of effort you have to put into it, but it really is simple. Real fast, before I lose this thought, you mentioned the push-up test.
Yeah.
So chapter 6 has 7 fitness tests that everyone should take to see where they are, not to feel bad about yourself, but to compare yourself to what is the average for your age group. So I'm looking in chapter 6. You said you did the push-up test, right? You said you did 10.
Yes.
Okay. Am I allowed to ask you your decade of life?
I'm 55.
Great. We're the same age. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So for women, you did modified push-up test
One
or regular?
look, I tried to do regular,
Okay.
very weak. I
That's
did
okay.
it though. I did
Okay.
10, but very weak.
Okay. So the test actually allows women to do a modified version of the push-up, but you did the regular push-up. So for your decade as a woman, you scored 10. You probably would have scored a little more. So let's give you 14. Okay. Because the modification is a little easier. Um, you are in the 11 to 20, which means you did very well.
Mm,
Very good. That
mm,
is very good. Women who are 50 to 59 who can do 21 or more are excellent. Those who can do 11 to 20 are very good. Those who are 7 to 10 are good. Those who are 2 to 6, fair. Those who are 1 or less needs improvement. The purpose of this chapter is for you to gain an assessment of where you are, and then it informs you of what you need to work on. And I love this chapter. And I hope people really take advantage of this chapter because it has this, as one of my favorite is, and I'm going to try to do it on Good Morning America 3 next week, is the single balance leg test, where you stand on one leg with your eyes open, okay? And then you time how long you can do it. Then when you get to like 50 or 60 seconds, then you stop. Then you close your eyes and lift your leg, the one leg back up with your eyes closed now, and see how long you can stand without falling over and putting that second foot down. You'll be amazed at how you can't last as long as you might think you can.
When we break down, I love the test. Once again, I'm always continue to say how comprehensive and how you went deep in this book. And I love all of your books. This is a special one for me because I've been with you on this all the books. Mind Over Matter was amazing as well too. But
Thank you.
this book right here, and I guess because I am matriculating in age, as far as in your 50s, when I see my parents aging, I see my friends' parents aging, I have my goals have shifted because I want to live long, I want to be healthy. In my mind, I'm still probably 29 or 30. And
Right.
so,
Which is good,
and
by the way. That's
yeah,
good. You want
yeah,
to have a young perspective. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I said, because you don't want to feel like you're old,
yeah,
right? Growing old chronologically is inevitable, but feeling old is not. I feel like I'm in my 20s, okay? And I think that that's a healthy way to be. Now, obviously, you don't want to do some of the crazy things you may have done in your 20s. I'm not saying that. You want to be mature about it,
yeah,
but you want to feel as capable as you were back then. And I think that that's important for people to feel that way. I also think that what people have to understand is you have to have a global perspective of what your journey is in life, right? And life is about seasons, and you have to appreciate the seasons. And
yeah,
I think the best way to do that is how you take care of yourself,
yeah.
right? Because your body is your vessel. And if your body is broken, then your quality of life is not going to be as great as you'd like it to be.
I agree, and I love growing old. I just don't want to look it, and it's like you can't when you ask me that question. I know different people are like, "Wow, she said her age." Yeah, because I have people I went to school with that'll, it's your friends that'll be like, "How am I this age and you that age?" And I just don't want to look at it. It's so important, and that's why your book is so important. When we talk about just eating your age and just growing old gracefully, I love that you break down talking about sleep. And you
Hmm.
say sleep long and deeply. Uh I'm amazed people to get 8 to 10 hours. I think that's amazing when I'm able to get that. But I've heard people go, "I'll sleep when I die." That's not what I'm trying to do. The importance of sleep. I would love for you to talk more about that.
People have to understand that sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is a period of time that our body needs in order to restore and reinvigorate.
Mhm.
When you are awake, whether you are running a marathon, catching a flight, or sitting down and watching a movie, it doesn't matter. You are stimulated. You are constantly stimulated. And that stimulation is stressful to the body. It impacts the body. It's stressful. And we always think stress means, oh, it's negative, it's a fight or flight. No, stress means that, you're in a state where your senses are working.
Yeah.
And so think about it. You spend hours and hours and hours being constantly stimulated while you're awake. Even while sitting down, just looking out the window, you're stimulated visually by something, or the temperature is stimulating you. Sleep is the time that your body can completely turn off, completely recharge. It's like recharging the battery in your car that got low. You got to recharge that battery so it's completely full. And that's what sleep is. And when people are not getting enough sleep, what they don't realize is they're affecting almost every system in their body. You're affecting your circadian rhythm. You're affecting your hormone levels, increasing your cortisol, which we know is not great because in some ways, because it adds fat to your abdominal region. So sleep is imperative. And I wanted to include sleep in here because I think people ignore it and they think it's something that they can make up on. And it's just not true. The body doesn't work that way.
Some I also thought one of the key things that I learned, because I continue to grow as far as learning what supplements I need, but what I learned, the importance of calcium. I was like, wow, really? Okay. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. And it
Yeah.
makes sense.
This fun, this book was so fun to write because not only am I a geek in the sense of I love knowledge and learning more and sharpening my knowledge, but I also kept thinking about the reader who is going to read this information, and that for someone it's going to turn the light bulb on in their head and the light's going to come on when you hear about calcium and vitamin B9 and B12. We all hear these words, by the way, but do you know what they really do? Do you know where you can get them from? Do you know how much you actually need? I wanted to put it all in one place, so that people can have this as a resource guide to understand. Now, listen, the book is called Eat Your Age. I can't write about every single topic about every health condition, but what I can do is I can give you guidance that if you're in your 40s, these are some of the illnesses you need to be careful of. And these are some of the screening tests you need to take to make sure you know what your numbers are. And that's how the book is written. It's written as a guide for people to be on top of their health and the knowledge related to their health.
It's an amazing book. Perfectly timed, starting at the beginning of the year, just released. It's so amazing. I can't say enough how much it breaks everything down. And I'm curious. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. When was your connection just with health? Because you are a physician. You've done different shows. The doctors. You did the boot camp with MT or VH1. Was that there before you got into medicine?
So I always say to people that I kind of fell into it. I have
Mhm.
always been an athlete, and I've always been a supreme athlete in the sense of I took it very seriously. And so I treated my body like a temple because I wanted the best athletic performance that I could get. So I never drank alcohol in my life. I've never done a drug. I've never smoked anything. And that's just kind of not because I had this moralistic or this clairvoyant view that this would help me when I'm in my 40s and 50s. No, I did it because I was an athlete and a very serious athlete. Now, looking back, wow, how lucky I was, because since that was my mindset and that was my lifestyle, that's benefited me. That's why at 55, I feel like I'm 25. I don't have any aches or pains, lifting tons of weight, can still dunk a basketball. You know, all that because I was an athlete. I got into the business and the practice of health because I wanted to share with other people how they can live a better quality of life. My whole career has been about taking information that I was fortunate enough to go to school to learn and being able to share it with others who either couldn't afford to go to school to learn it or just simply can't understand it because it's too complicated. And so the ability to share and impact people's lives is what really fuels me. It's my oxygen.
I love that. I wanted to talk about just my final question, your legacy and how amazing it continues to build, and your connection with, I'm gonna call them your fans, the people that you connect. I would love to hear any inspirational story, because you have inspirational stories throughout this book, but one that is really most personal to you, and how, just why you continue to do what you do.
Many years ago, I had given a report about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I was a reporter for NBC New York at the time. And I got an email from a person who, when I was in college, she was in law school, the same school. And I hadn't talked to her in, I don't know, 8, 9 years. But she found my email and she reported to me that one night she had seen me cover a story, which was the PCOS story, and how PCOS was being treated to help women who were having fertility issues. And she followed what I had said to do in that report. And then she became pregnant. And she had been trying for many years to become pregnant. That personally was the exemplar of what I was trying to do with my career, which is to share information that people can take action on, and then change their lives for the better. And the second thing I want to say quickly is my mother last week, after all these years, sent me a text message. And she sent me a text message basically saying that she wanted to acknowledge that I'm a pioneer,
Mm.
particularly as an African American physician doing what I do, that I was there from the beginning doing it by myself, and that I had a legacy. And the fact that this is the first time she's ever spoken to me like that I was by myself and a pioneer, it felt good coming from my mother, who tends to be, as most parents are, quite critical. Despite your level of success, parents can always find something wrong with you. That was important to me, and that made a difference. And I let her know that. So, I hope my legacy is that people around the world in some way saw something I wrote or something I said. It inspired them to make a change, and that change improved the quality of their life. Because listen, if you live to be 100, life is still too short. So I want people of all political spectrums, of all sexual orientations, all genders, I don't care who you are, I want you to get the most out of life because we only have one of them.
I'm gonna do this for you. I really kudos to you. Thank you to you for putting this book together. Um it's really charged me. I'm going to the gym today because I got to add weights, more weights. I want to be in that
Please.
excellent push up category. But what you're doing for millions of people all over the world is so important. And I thank you. This book, I thank you for the extra, is it called the enhancement that you gave,
Yes.
which is such a beautiful bonus. I like the word enhancer because I was like, this is more than a bonus, because this is a blueprint,
Yeah.
supreme
Yeah.
blueprint to life.
Yeah. That's the idea. Let me say before I go real fast that I also have a recipe book. It's called the Eat Your. I'm gonna send you a copy. It's the Eat Your Age official recipe book. It's a soft little small paperback, 150 tasty, affordable, simple, healthy recipes that take 30 minutes or less most of the time, and about $4 per serving. This recipe book was written for people who are on a budget, who may not be able to cook very well, but would like to have tasty, healthy food, and they're don't have a lot of time to prepare it. So please pick up a copy of the Eat Your Age official recipe book. And lastly, I have a virtual boot camp that's free. If you pick up a copy of the book and you want help with it, I have a virtual boot camp. Send me an email, eatyourage@gmail.com. We have hundreds of people doing it together. It's a community, it's a support system for everybody. And it's really, really good. Because studies show, by the way, Kelly, people who have a support system lose more weight, maintain their weight loss, and are healthier because they have people who are helping them. So I try to provide that for people who are going through the journey.
Job well done. I'm so glad that you stuck with it. You had the idea years ago, and God put you with the right publishers to get this information out. Job well done. I thank you, Dr. Ian Smith. His new book, please get it, Eat Your Age.